Hey folks, this is Rhykker, and Season 10 of Diablo 4 launches next Tuesday, and we just had the new format dev stream going over the details. In this video, we'll give a recap of that dev stream. So first off, as you'll remember, they changed the format of how they're doing these campfire chats. They announced that they'd be doing that for the PTR, for instance. Typically, they would have a dev stream. They did not. Instead, they just released the blog covering what Season 11 would entail, the Season of Chaos, and then they had a Sanctuary sit-down, which was a more informal, smaller kind of talk and chat that happened on Discord and was live streamed by a community member, Cliptus, who was hosting it. But there was no official stream that happened on the Diablo channel. Instead, they put a lot of production value and effort into doing this stream for the season reveal itself, the final stream right before the season, and it is a good format. They started off with a sizzle trailer of about 2.5 minutes produced. It went over all the important details. It was a good hype trailer, and they moved into a Q&A where the devs went over some more details. It was altogether more succinct and more geared towards being a hype reveal for those who weren't following the PTR. So, what did it cover exactly? First of all, if you haven't seen my video going over what Season 11 entails, I encourage you to do that. I'll touch upon it in here, but we're not going to just repeat everything that was in that video. We'll highlight more what may have changed based on the PTR. So first off, the Chaos perks, the seasonal powers of this season, which again are the most transformative of any of the powers we've seen before. That's why they call them perks instead of powers. From the test server, they felt that the generic perks were a bit too powerful compared to the class-specific perks. So they did a tuning pass there to really bring up in power a lot of the class-specific perks, with the exception being the Druid, whose class-specific perks were way too strong. They've toned those down. Rogue got the most love. They felt that the Rogue was kind of left behind. And so not only did they buff the Rogue perks, they also retooled some of them to work better. Now, Chaos perks isn't the only thing coming this season. We also get Chaos armor. This is a new category of very powerful, unique item. And what they ended up doing was adding even more Chaos uniques. Every class gets one additional Chaos unique on top of what was already available. So the Barbarian is getting Ramalandes, which is just a widely useful Barbarian item that can be worked into a lot of different builds. The Druid is getting the Dolmen Stone, now available as a Chaos armor if you want to move that spinning boulder amulet onto a piece of armor instead to open up more possibilities and empowering that boulder build. We'll see what can be possible. I'd love to see a top tier boulder druid. Necromancer's getting Mutilator Plate for some Bloodlance support. The Rogue is getting Scoundrel's Kiss. That's going to be for rapid fire, lobbing those grenades. The Sorcerer is getting Esu's Heirloom. That's another more generic item that can be worked into multiple builds. It'll free up your boot slot since Esu's is normally boots. And the Spiritborn is getting Sunbird's Gorget. Again, an amulet being moved off now onto an armor piece. And the interesting thing about the armors is that they, being uniques, they are going to retain the all resist bonus. So it's a great way to get that all resist from the amulet onto an armor slot. And when I was talking about Chaos armor in the introductory video, some people misunderstood. Chaos armor is just here for the season. It is not a permanent addition to the game, nor are the Chaos perks. So once the season is over, Chaos armor will be deprecated. But during the stream today, they did stress if people really love it, they're going to find some way to bring it back in the future. Now, Chaos armor can be somewhat target farmed simply by gambling. So if you really want a Chaos armor chest piece, you can just gamble and eventually you'll get that Chaos armor. The best way to get Chaos armor is farming the new boss, Bartuc, but you could just kind of get it anywhere as well. Now, speaking of Bartuc, let's talk about the Infernal Hordes. So if you're not aware, Infernal Hordes now has an optional boss at the end that is an alternative to fighting the Council. You have to pay an ether price to fight Bartuc. It's a new boss fight, and if you defeat him, then the rewards will be worth it. But if you fail, then, well, you lose your ether. A change from PTR is that Bartuc will now follow the same invulnerability rules as the rest of the lair bosses. And in case you missed it, lair bosses now have a system by which if you are able to deal enough damage, you can effectively bypass their invulnerability phases. It was a little complicated to parse, but you can dig into the patch notes and see that the new rules are, first off, a boss's invulnerability phase cannot be triggered within the first 10 seconds of combat, meaning it's going to be at least 11 seconds before a boss becomes invulnerable. Then the second thing is every time you knock off 1/3 of the boss's life, so once it's down to 2/3 life, and then once it's down to 1/3 life, every time that happens, the boss is going to gain a shield. Now, lair bosses who had invulnerability phases, they would trigger every time you took off 1/3 of the lair boss's health. So down to 2/3 and down to 1/3 health, that would trigger an invulnerability phase. Now, before the invulnerability phase is triggered, instead, we're going to get a shield. The boss is going to get a shield, and you have 5 seconds to take out that shield. If you can take out that shield in 5 seconds, the invulnerability phase is skipped. If you cannot take out the shield in 5 seconds, then the invulnerability phase proceeds. So the first shield, once you've taken the boss down to 2/3 life, is equal to 1/3 of the boss's life. The second shield, once the boss is down to 1/3 life, that shield is equal to 2/3 of the boss's life. So what does this mean in the end? Again, if you have a build that can deal so much damage so quickly that you're able to melt down these shields, then the boss will never become invulnerable. If you don't have the damage to do that, then the fight basically proceeds as it always has, where they go into their invulnerability phase. Now, back to Infernal Hordes. They've made some other changes as well, based on PTR feedback. The Chaos Waves. First off, Chaos Waves will not be nearly as prevalent. They made them spawn more often on the PTR so that we can test them, so they won't come up as often. Chaos Waves are really fun. So Chaos Wave spawns as a 4th option. It doesn't replace the 3 offerings. It spawns as a 4th offering, and they were just so powerful that you always wanted to take them. That might still be the case, but they also did a tuning pass to buff some of the other offerings. They also, however, wanted to ensure that with the Chaos Waves being more rare, they're definitely worth taking when you get them. They also did a pass that is going to affect just the core way you get rewards from Infernal Hordes. Previously, your build, right, the choices that you make in Infernal Hordes would be the predominant factor in determining how much ether you get. They've dialed down that importance so that ether as well is just kind of more rewarding from completing the events in general. And your build choice still does matter, but not as much. So like, for instance, let's say you are building towards elites and you get Soul Spire. Previously, the Soul Spire would not be rewarding. Now it's going to be more rewarding to do the Soul Spire. And speaking of Soul Spires, if you'll remember, I said that Soul Spires still didn't feel worth doing for a number of reasons. They are juicing Soul Spires. We don't quite know how, but they think they might have overtuned how good Soul Spires are to do now. We'll find out. Part of the reason is that they made the base ether upgrades for Soul Spires really powerful, and they also added multiplicative modifiers on how much ether you can get. They also just did a pass across all the offerings. They really wanted to ensure that the legendary and rare offerings were worth taking. So that about covers the dev chat, folks. As a reminder, for full details on what the season entails, do check out my video where I first covered all that. But otherwise, folks, I leave you with the question, do you intend to play Season 10 of Diablo 4, or is this not enough to bring you back? Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more Diablo content.